Good evening, America, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from, where, Washington, D.C., and the WiredFishCoffee.com studios. You know this. Wired Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. It's just a great brand. The coffee tastes great. It does good with every cup of coffee you drink. It donates to Christian and conservation causes, so you can do good while you're drinking your coffee. And if you're a Just the News fan club member like you are, you get a fantastic 10% discount just by using the promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout. So go to wiredtofishcoffee.com and use the promo code JUSTNEWS. Wired, the number 2, fishcoffee.com. You can also point your camera at that QR code, of course. All right, yesterday was Liberation Day, right? Today is the Dow drops day. Yep, as we expected and predicted, the market dropped today. It may drop for several days until investors get comfortable with what President Trump did. But the Trump White House is unapologetic. In just a few minutes, you're going to get to see an exclusive interview we did with President Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro. We're going to get to that. I want to alert everyone to a breaking news story. We're watching this very closely. We do not have a lot of details yet, but D.C. police, Washington, D.C. police are reporting short ways from the United States Capitol. There has been a mass stabbing event. Multiple people stabbed, a suspect in custody. We have a photo of the knife that the police have cut. I think we'll recovered at the scene. We'll try to get that up in a little bit when we have time. We're keeping an eye on this. We don't know if this is a crime scene, a terrorism scene, or just something else, but Metropolitan Police have walled off a large area on the southeast side of D.C., just a short way, maybe about a mile away from the U.S. Capitol. So we'll keep you up to date on that all the way through. A good time to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, who's been all over the day after Liberation Day, which has been the day the tariffs sunk into the markets. Markets had a tough day. I think down 5%. What are you hearing?
Yeah, a little bit of a hangover. I think that's the best way to describe it. And we're going to get back to tariffs in just a second. But first, I want to run down some news stories that kind of got buried in all of the news today. Number one is an update from a story that we brought you last night. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has officially announced that he is not going to be running as a Democrat in the upcoming mayoral race, but instead as an independent. That announcement comes after his charges were dismissed in his bribery case yesterday. And that's some big news and what is shaping up to be a very interesting race in the Big Apple, because former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is also running to be mayor. You may remember Cuomo famously resigned over sexual harassment allegations that stem from an investigation by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Everybody knows that name now, so that's definitely going to be one to watch. And secondly, what the left has dubbed Signalgate, well, it's not going away, as the Pentagon's acting inspector general said earlier today that he will be reviewing Defense Secretary Hegseth and his use of the Signal app, as well as other defense officials. And the inspector general said that the purpose of the investigation will be to make sure that Hegseth followed the proper procedures while using the app. And finally, back to tariffs. We've been hearing a lot of doom and gloom around them today. The markets open with a lot of uncertainty this morning, and many are wondering what the response from other nations will be. But we already know the response from some large companies like Apple, Honda, and Hyundai. They'll be moving some manufacturing to the United States, and Ford has also gotten into gear, announcing earlier today that they will be offering employee pricing to all customers for most of their vehicle lineup. They are calling it their From America for America pricing plan. Very interesting, almost like MAGA for buying cars.
How about that? I caught that little reference, gear. That's good. Yeah, nice job there. How about that? Yeah.
Dad jokes.
I got to up my witty game here. All right. Listen, today was a tough day for the markets. 1,600 points down on the Dow Jones, on the Wall Street today. Yeah. The S&P down, I think, more than 5%. It was one of the darker days in the market. Expected, just like President Trump said, hey, the market's going to react for a while, and then things will balance out. It's a long game play for America to get rid of the trade imbalances that harm American workers, American companies, and taxpayers. There's also an opportunity, as President Trump pointed out yesterday, to bring down the deficit and debt. Earlier today, one of the architects of this plan, he's been by the president's side for more than a decade now, fighting China, trying to argue for fair and free trade. We've had free trade that was unfair to America, is Peter Navarro. Earlier today, we caught him on the White House lawn and had a great conversation with him. We want you to listen and watch what he had to say. All right, joining us right now, the man who made a lot of this possible that happened yesterday on Liberation Day. He's been fighting for American fairness for more than a decade, been in President Trump's ears. Yesterday was not only a Liberation Day, it was a tribute to Peter Navarro, his great advisor. Peter, welcome to the show. Congratulations.
It's all the boss, John. The boss goes back to 1980. He was talking about being ripped off by the rest of the world. This came full circle to a solution tomorrow. And what we have, John, I think is the fairest thing in the world. All we've ever asked here in America is for fair treatment. And what we have institutionalized in the World Trade Organization is a system which allows the rest of the world to charge us systematically higher tariffs, but more importantly, allows us to have to suffer through what we call non-tariff barriers. These are the bigger problems we face, John. And let me just give you what is an incomplete but long list. You start with the currency manipulation. You have the VAT tax distortions. You have export subsidies. You have dumping. You have counterfeiting and piracy, intellectual property theft. You have these state-owned enterprises that run around. And with China and a couple of other countries, you have the economic espionage and cyber espionage, stealing everything from us. And we have no defense against that at the World Trade Organization. And in fact, the rules favor the cheaters. So what President Trump did yesterday was tantamount to a structural rebalance of the entire global trade system so that we level the playing field for American workers, businesses, ranchers, farmers, tech entrepreneurs, and everybody else in between. And we are going to introduce a golden age of prosperity. You know, we had the gold rush back in the 1800s. Now we're going to have the golden age rush. We've already had $3 trillion of new investment pledged for this country, John. That's about 10% of our gross domestic product, and we're just getting started. So put your seatbelts on. It's going to be just a beautiful economic ride.
Yeah. I love it. Peter, Amanda Head here. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you about some of these countries who are going to be coming down the pike to negotiate. Who do you think are the most low-hanging fruit who are going to be coming to the table saying, all right, let's come
Let me stop you right there. This is not a negotiation. It's a national emergency. The goal is not to bring these countries to the table. I mean, what are they going to tell us? If for 40 years they've cheated us, what are they going to do? Tell us overnight they're going to drop their tariffs? The tariffs are but a drop in the bucket of all the cheating that they do. Or you expect Europe to repeal its VAT tax overnight? The fact of the matter is that cheating is institutionalized in the regulatory, legal, and political frameworks of all of these countries that are cheating us. And we're not looking to make a deal. We're looking to solve a national emergency. The national emergency is a massive trade deficit in excess of $1 trillion a year that measures how many jobs we've lost, how many factories we've shut, and how much wealth we transfer every year to the bad guys. We're giving away our country because they cheat and then they take our wealth. We pay for it twice. We pay for the cheap goods at the Walmart and big box retailers, but then we pay for it again. The lost jobs, our lost factories, our lost assets. They're buying our homes. They're buying our office buildings. They're buying our farmland. They're buying our supply chain for our food. And you wonder why prices are going up. So this is the new golden age where American workers, farmers, ranchers, tech entrepreneurs, businesses, everybody in between are going to be defended by President Donald Trump. And I couldn't have been more happy about Liberation Day.
And just see the people in the audience. The audience was filled with people who had been victimized for those last 40 years under globalism, under free trade, which turned out to be free and unfair trade for America. What are some of the economic opportunities short term? Obviously, the Treasury is going to get a lot more money. Walk us through some of the benefits that we're going to see pretty quickly.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, the tariff revenues themselves. The other structural element of this, besides restructuring the global trading system, is restructuring our tax system. We're going to move from an income tax dependent country to one in which we have an external revenue service where tariffs increasingly you're going to pay for a lot of what we need. We're going back to the era of one of the great presidents in American history, William McKinley. And so here's my pledge. Every dollar that we extract from foreign nations and foreign producers in the form of tariffs will go back to the American people. They'll go back to the American people in the form of tax breaks. They'll go back to the American people in the form of debt reduction. Debt reduction will then in turn lead to lower mortgage interest rates. They'll return interest rates themselves on consumer debt, and that will reap benefits. So the economic benefits of tariffs alone. Now, in terms of opportunities, nobody steals the show for Donald Trump. But I tell you, Brian, the UAW worker, came close yesterday when he got up and explained succinctly how and why there are so many unused factories sitting dormant around Detroit and other parts of Rust Belt and auto manufacturing belt. So the big thing is going to be which companies get to expand that capacity the fastest and seize the market with tariff protection. So that's going to be a very interesting race, and that's why the tariffs are so important to begin with. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. I'm very bullish on this economy. I think the stock market will reflect this golden age, and I can't wait.
A lot of naysayers predicted that the stock market would tank yesterday, and well, it certainly didn't. I want to ask you about something in the business sector. Ford announced this Handshake with America initiative to offer employee pricing to prospective customers, kind of an America First way of selling their own vehicles, an American-made car. Do you think other businesses are going to join in on this and kind of jump on the America First Handshake with America bandwagon?
Yeah, I was having a hard time hearing you explain that program. Who's doing what to who?
Ford Motor Company throughout the spring is going to be offering employee prices to customers, and they're calling it a Handshake with America. And this is in response, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yes,
great.
Sir. So I'm asking if you think other businesses are going to follow suit.
Yeah. So it's pretty extraordinary what's happened.
Look, I do know. I don't know what Ford's going to do and whether that program will work. I do know that in the biggest tax cut in American history that's coming in a few months, we hope, one of the things that's going to be in there is lucrative interest deductions for people who buy American cars. So that's one of the ways that money's going to come back. No tax on tips is going to be paid for tariffs. No tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security. The tariff revenue is going to help pay for all of that.
An extraordinary domino. It was a shot heard around the world yesterday. It's such a historic moment. It'll take a few days. This morning we wrote a story comparing what Donald Trump is doing now to what Ronald Reagan did to bring down the Soviet empire. Peace through strength, prosperity through strength, maybe Donald Trump's legacy. How do you think other nations, besides paying the tariffs, which they're going to pay, how do you think these nations are going to react in a positive way down the road?
Well, John, the reason why I'm standing here is that the president actually saw your article, and it's like, hey, let's go talk to John Solomon. So I drew the long straw on that, brother, and
Sorry
here
about
I
that.
am. So no,
I'll pay you.
it's great. I said it was the long straw, not the short one. You get my drift. Look, what do we have in the first term? Trust in Trump. We had peace, prosperity, and we had the growth of our manufacturing sector and a rise in real wages. And we're going to get that again, John. Let's see what happens. It's amazing what this president has to contend with. It's just, all the things he has to do is just amazing. I got my phone ringing here, so I apologize for that. Should have turned the ringer off. Oh, it's the boss. No, just kidding. He said, tell Solomon, write another article.
You're so funny. Well,
yeah.
Peter, I've known you a long time, and I've seen the extraordinary work you've done. Yesterday was a day, obviously the president drove this, but your thinking, your intellectual leadership on this set that day in motion. Congratulations for everything you've achieved there.
Yeah, well, I'm just a foot soldier. It's all the boss. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I believe you. Good to have you on. What an honor.
All right, brother. You keep doing what you're doing, man. I tell people that you're the most feared man in the swamp. When Solomon says something, people duck for cover in the swamp. So keep writing those truths.
I will, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your truths with us. A good deal. All right, the markets might be squealing, but the White House is not apologizing. They're double, tripling down. They're going to stay on this course, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the next several months. We'll be chronicling it here at Real America's Voice and Just the News. Now, overnight, there were some terrible storms that brought up through the middle part of the country. Tennessee, hard hit. One of our great senators from that state, Senator Marsha Blackburn, is going to join us. She's also on the front lines of a big discussion about how you rein in federal judges who are trying to enjoin an entire nation from a small judicial district. We're going to tackle all that right after the commercial break. Hey folks, let's be honest, our body lets us know, right? We're not getting any younger. And if you want to look and feel your best, you need to check out our good friends at Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements designed to help with every health goal, whether it's boosting your energy, trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs. Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the good old USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. You heard me right, 35% off. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use the coupon code JUSTNEWS at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's zero risk in trying something new, so why wait? Head over to purehealthresearch.com right now. Explore their 45 amazing supplements and save 35% before this deal ends with the coupon code JUSTNEWS. Don't miss this chance to feel your best.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. Still pretty scant on details from that stabbing over at the Capitol, but if there are ever details to be had, John Solomon has them, and you've got a few.
We do. It's a really terrible tragedy. So D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith telling reporters just a few minutes ago, a man in an altered state, most likely due to substance or substance abuse, stabbed 6 people. A woman he was walking with, then a grandmother trying to protect her 2 children, several Good Samaritans who tried to intervene. He then left the scene, apparently stabbed himself, and then threw the knife off. We have a picture of the knife. You're looking at it there. D.C. Police just posted that. A terrible story, apparently related to substance abuse, Good Samaritans, grandmas, a lot of victims, at least 6 civilians other than the victims stabbed in this. We'll keep you up to date throughout the night at Just the News, but the very latest here, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. So as John teased, we did sit down earlier with Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn and spoke about a very wide range of issues. Take a look. Joining us from the volunteer state, the great state of Tennessee, Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to join you. Thank you.
Before we get into that hearing yesterday and a whole swath of other subjects, I want to first check in on Tennessee. Tornadoes sweeping all across that state. I know the president issued an emergency declaration. Can you fill us in?
Yes, indeed. We were so pleased that the president acted so promptly and issued the declaration last night, and we are grateful for that and for that prompt response. That way, FEMA is able to work alongside our state emergency management and get help to people that they are needing. The town of Selmer, Tennessee, which is in the southwestern part of the state, they took a direct hit. We have 6 lives that have been lost there and just massive property destruction.
Oh, so tragic for a state that's had a lot of natural disasters the last few years, I know. How do you feel FEMA's doing? Just staying on the topic for a second, because I know you did a lot of great work on FEMA's failures over the years. How do you think they're doing now? What lessons have we learned since the Biden years?
One of the things we've learned from the Biden years is that a centralized bureaucratic FEMA is not flexible, they're not agile, and they cannot turn on a dime and meet the response. As we looked at what happened with Hurricane Helene, we certainly realized FEMA was not the first in, they were the last to get in and get on the ground. And so this is one of the reasons we acted promptly as the storm was beginning to hit, because not only have we had the lightning strikes and we have had injury that has been caused there, the tornadoes, we have roads that have been washed out from the flooding. We have homes and neighborhoods that are completely underwater at this point.
Absolutely heartbreaking. We will certainly be praying for those people in Tennessee, like John said. I mean, so much just the last 4 months or so. Senator, you are one of those solution seekers up on Capitol Hill, and a theme of conversations this week has been judicial reform. And I know in the Judiciary Committee, there were a number of solutions. One of them was keeping those injunctions isolated to that district for the adjoining parties. Tell us what you think is going to be the best solution going forward, and it's got to happen fast.
Well, it does indeed, which means that you're going to need the Supreme Court to weigh in on this, and I am certainly that Chief Justice Roberts will do that. In addition to that, it is important to realize that there is zero constitutional authority and zero statutory authority that allows a federal district judge to issue a nationwide injunction. We know that a federal district judge is limited in scope to the case that is in front of him and the district in which he is seated. And for these district judges to think that they can do a universal injunction and have it stand is something that is activist activity. And one of what I think, and one of the things that became so clear yesterday in the hearing that we had on this, is Democrats have not been able to get their way and get what they want at the ballot box or through legislative activity. So now they are turning to the judiciary and say, we failed, so we need you to go fix this. And it proves to us that the Democrats have learned nothing from the election in November, and they are completely out of step with the American people.
It is remarkable, the disconnect that continues. You think they would have picked up on all the loud signals that November delivered. I want to stay on judicial reform. A little while ago, a couple weeks ago, we had a story about Judge Boasberg. A few months before he did this injunction, keeping the president from deporting illegal alien criminal gang members, he attended a conference free of charge, one of those junkets. He goes, the group is predominantly anti-Trump. The speakers are anti-Trump. They're actually very specific on being against Trump's immigration policies, and he rules in the way that they would like him to rule. Is it time to end free junkets for judges?
That probably would be a good thing. But John, what we have, or what we got from the Biden administration, were judicial nominees who had never been a judge. Some of them were for the appellate court, the federal district court. They had never been a judge in any type federal court, whether it was a tax court or any other. They had never been a judge at the state or the local level, a city or a county. As I have said many times, they had never even judged the pie contest at the county fair. They had never been a judge. And yet they were political activists, and maybe they worked for a nonprofit or they taught at a university. And so the Biden administration chose to elevate them with a lifetime appointment to the federal bench. So now the Democrats, who are, they're on the wrong side of just about every issue with the American people. So now they're calling in that favor, if you will, and they're saying, hey, we need you to go in here and rule on this or to rule on that. And that is why in the month of February, you saw 15 nationwide injunctions against President Trump. And during Joe Biden's entire 4 years, you only had 14 nationwide injunctions against him.
Oh.
The requirement of judicial pedigree just has seemingly fallen away. I want to ask you something else about something that's very important. Americans have seen a lot of issues with Boeing, and not just commercially. Obviously, the relationships with the DoD and R&D are very, very important. You had some pointed questions for the CEO. Tell us what you got from him.
Yes, I did. I was very disappointed with the CEO. I wanted to know what he was doing to address the work culture. As we have heard from whistleblowers and from employees at Boeing, what has become apparent is that they were losing their edge. They were once the titan of the aerospace industry, and now they are losing that. So work culture plays into that. That needs to be a priority. The return to safety should be a priority. We've got a lot of skittish flyers right now because of some of the incidences that have occurred. And the other thing was whistleblower protection. We've had an issue with Boeing firing or isolating, seeking to remove people that were whistleblowers. And now, hindsight's 2020, and we realize they should have been listening to these whistleblowers. I also had a question for them about the Chinese airline, and which is owned in large part by the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese aerospace industry. And I had been a bit concerned with a comment by the Ryanair CEO who said that they were looking to buy airplanes from China. And that should concern us all because of the technology security breaches that exist in the technology systems, Huawei, ZTE, and those systems that the Chinese Communist Party is also a part owner of. And of course, we know that not only do these systems exist in telecommunications equipment and computer systems, but also in their chips and other components you would find in an aircraft.
Senator, I want to ask one last question real quickly on China, because you have been such an important voice on China for a long time. The Biden administration ended a policy called the China Initiative, which allowed the FBI to look for spies in academia, one of the places China often embedded its spies.
Right.
Do you think the Trump administration will restore that, or is there a better approach going forward?
My hope is that they restore the China Initiative. We do know that in many of our universities that we have individuals who are classed as professors or academics, or through the Confucius Classroom Project, Confucius Institute Project. They have sent them here as guest lecturers, and they're spies. And now that that has become commonplace, we need to make certain that the China Initiative is in place, and that these individuals that are coming in are who are actually spies and a part of the soft propaganda machine of the Chinese Communist Party, that they are not allowed to come into this country.
So
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. Senator Marsha Blackburn, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Good to join you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. If you've been wondering what's going on with the conversations with Greenland, we're going to have that right after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Just a quick programming note. John had to step out for just a moment to work on a very important story, but another important story that we have to cover is Greenland. What is going on ever since J.D. Vance visited that country? Joining us now to talk more about it is former Administrative Assistant Secretary at the Department of Energy. He's also served at the White House and in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the founder and CEO of GreenMet, Drew Horn. Drew, great to have you in the studio.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think for a lot of Americans, when they heard President Trump floating the idea of some type of relationship with Greenland, people thought, well, why? I mean, obviously, so many. I looked at the list of minerals that are underneath the soil of Greenland. Gold and diamonds, which obviously is great. Nickel, tungsten, uranium, zinc, graphite, magnesium. The list goes on and on and on. So while we are sitting here waiting on some type of deal to be struck with Ukraine and Russia, hey, there's another viable option over here.
Right, which happens to be a neighbor and a natural part of North America, too.
Yeah, yeah. So is that one of the main focuses of some type of partnership with Greenland?
Yes, yeah, I think that's one of the key business cases there. And so I was fortunate enough to work this issue and the Greenland issue for President Trump the first time I think there's been a lot of development, and I think the president really sees that, and there's a huge opportunity. So,
what was the impetus the first time around when you first got involved? What did President Trump see in Greenland that he had like those big cartoon eyes that really wanted to capitalize?
Well, I think he saw that they're a natural neighbor. We need them as an ally and closely aligned for defense purposes, and we have a lot of defense resources there. And then there's just big numbers of oil and gas, both onshore and offshore. That's actually what led me there for the first time for Rick Perry when I went there a long time ago. And then the mineral story is just trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars, ripe for development that really should be aimed back at the United States as we look to build up our technical and technology and defense capabilities.
Do they already have pre-existing contracts with other nations for mineral rights?
So they have in the past, most famously, of course, Denmark, who still technically owns them, has honestly kind of raided a lot of their resources in the past. We've done some development over the years, but primarily they're looking to develop it with new partners on their terms.
Yeah. As you have dealt with Greenland and the people of Greenland and had conversations with movers and shakers and people who would be involved in this deal, do you get a sense from them that there is, I guess, a bitterness towards Denmark?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sadly, Denmark has a really kind of dark history towards how they've treated Greenland.
Yeah.
There's been a really bad history of oppression, even some forced sterilization, just ugly things that I don't think the Danes really want to come to light or focus on. A lot of it was relatively recent too. So,
how recent?
I mean, like in the 60s and 70s. Yeah,
okay.
So we're not even talking, 100 years ago. This is
more than a century.
yeah, people that are still alive, right, in Greenland. And so they definitely want independence. It's overwhelming. They want to work with the United States. There's just, I think, an intentional kind of miscommunication that Copenhagen and a few other parties are trying to influence here to just, try and create distance between the United States and Greenland when there really isn't any.
What is the upside for Denmark? For Greenland? What can we offer them?
Well, we can essentially help them achieve their full economic potential, right? And so it's a small country, but they can be wealthy beyond their most fabulous dreams, assuming that they just want to look at business development. It's not conditional. I represent a consortium of private businesses looking to put, tens of billions of dollars in there, honestly. And I think it's actually viable and doable, despite some of the naysayers. And the Greenlanders, not surprisingly, are pretty pro development in that way.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
President Trump is always such a business-minded person, and I think that's part of the reason that he has been elected now twice, is because of his business approach to governance. When he's looking at a country like Greenland, obviously the minerals that we talked about, very, very resource rich, but what are some of the other industries? Well,
there's actually a lot of energy potential, and it's honestly a data center dreamland, right? And so a lot of people don't realize that in addition to the minerals, you've got hydropower, you've got the potential for advanced power systems. I mean, there's a history of nuclear there, and I think with the advanced reactors, there's a continued possibility to build up on that, especially on some of these military bases. And, it's really just the best place to, keep hardware and materials needed for data centers because of the natural cool temperatures.
What is their experience with nuclear? Because we have a lot of conversations with people who are on the conservative green energy side of things, major proponents of nuclear. But we obviously have a lot of skittish governing bodies here in the United States, whether it's at the federal level or at the state or the local level. We just saw in California a lot of controversy surrounding, El Diablo, one of the nuclear sites there. Does Greenland have a resume when it comes to nuclear that we could use, where we could kind of use that as a prototype for developing more here?
Yeah, I think especially on the bases. Obviously there was some nuclear development, in the 50s and 60s. We've long had a military assistance program with them. But, the reality is there are advanced reactor technologies that are developing rapidly. A lot of them are best developed on a military base. That's been one of the ideas that the Greenlanders and the Danes have talked about wanting. And so we could easily deploy that, partner that with mega data center that was supplied by it, and then use that as a model to replicate here in the United States, I would say.
I love that. Tell us about what took place during the vice president's trip.
Well, it was interesting, right? So I was kind of communicating with the Greenlandic business leaders and leadership behind the scenes. And I think initially it got distorted from what was intended to be a very culturally respective, friendly visit from the second lady.
Yeah.
And so, I think the vice president, was very savvy in saying, well, let's just go do a check-in on the troops. Let's go to the space base. Even the Danes were happy with that. The Greenlanders were too. I think there was a large Greenland majority that really does love the United States, would have loved to meet with the Second Lady, help kind of show her the dog race and all the beauty of the culture. But I think really just sort of this Danish proxy and this Danish manipulated message coming out of Copenhagen and their proxies in Nuuk, the capital, really just kind of distorted that, made it too complicated. And so I think the vice president made a really good choice to just focus on all the defense capabilities that we bring to Greenland and honestly to every country that is looking to do business in the North Atlantic.
Yeah. Well, so what happened with the cultural stuff? Was it a situation where Denmark felt like that would be too warm of a trip, that I don't know, shed too much positive light on Greenland?
Yeah, well, so what a lot of people don't understand is there's some transplants in Nuuk, which is the capital, that are really just Danish puppets, kind of, to be frank. And they just oppose any sort of Greenlandic development, whether it's business, whether it's towards independence, which the Greenlanders definitely want, cultural development, intentional Danish suppression of the Inuit culture, which are the native Greenlanders. And so you see a lot of that. There's a saying in Greenland that, Nuuk is not Greenland, it's Nuuk, right? Because it's kind of like Copenhagen transplanted, and they vote and act accordingly. And so, unfortunately, those are kind of the cultural elite. They're the haves as opposed to the have-nots. They have a history of suppressing and oppressing the majority of Greenlanders. And so, there's some parallels to what we've seen, honestly, some of our elites in our cities not really being in touch, with the more, I hate to put it, but common people like us that have, legitimate needs and want to grow. And so you see a lot of that in Greenland. And I think that sort of ugliness is what crept up and really just got in the way of what would have been and will be in the future a great cultural exploration between, the Second Lady and a country that, loves us and loves her. Yeah, it's a beautiful country. I want to close with the defense side of things, because obviously Greenland would hugely, hugely benefit from the U.S. aiding them as far as defense. What is the most complementary way that we can aid them in the defense sector? Well, a lot of it is just a natural fit, right? So the reality is, whether people don't want to admit it or not, Denmark's not really capable of even defending itself, let alone a proxy state that they're trying to oppress and control. So it's always going to come down to the United States, just like we're going to always protect everyone else in North America. I mean, I think that's a fact. And the Canadians and everyone else would probably, at least privately, admit that. That's been the history. And so we're going to protect Greenland as part of our current agreement and arrangement. That's something they actively want and pursue. And so what I think we're looking at doing is just offering a series of proposals to bolster what's already working, right? They've asked us, obviously, to develop more on the space base. That's natural. They've asked us to potentially build 1 or 2 additional naval bases. One of the big ways of providing services, protecting them, and also enabling their search and rescue would be to add a naval base or 2 and some naval assets, a Coast Guard. These are the big asks that they have. There's other ways that we could, look to reverberate and bring back some of the old bases that we've had. They've asked for that too. But I think it's really that naval presence and protecting those northern sea routes that they want and that we want. Yeah, thank you so much, Drew Horn. Thanks so much for having me. All right, absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to take a very quick break. And thank you again to Drew Horn, and we'll be back on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. A lot of debate taking place these last few weeks about the Trump administration seemingly being blocked at just about every turn by activist judges, and it has led to a big discussion that we've had on this program. Is it the role of the judiciary? With us to discuss more about that, as well as a few other topics, legal expert and attorney, as well as the host of What's Right show, Sam Mirajovsky. Sam, thanks so much for being here. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so James Boasberg, the judge in the deportation flight case, is considering holding Trump officials in contempt. Even outside of the legal ramifications of this, the optics just don't seem to be great. But fill us in on your thoughts legally.
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest ironies here is that actually the courts really have very limited power to do much in the way of enforcing anything against the Trump administration. A lot of legal experts focus on what rights the courts have and don't have. I mean, I think Boasberg doesn't even have jurisdiction over this case. So if Trump ignores him and gets a contempt proceeding against him or against the attorneys at the DOJ, essentially all they have to do is ignore it. And then there's no enforcement mechanism in place because any enforcement comes from, by the federal government, which is controlled by the administration. The administration can very well just prevent, any fines being levied, any jail, sentences being levied. So really, ultimately, Boasberg and all these crazy judges are pretty powerless to do anything vis-a-vis the administration.
So what is the answer? Obviously, we got to work within some form of the system. There's Congress, there's the Supreme Court. Where do you think the first resolution to this disturbing trend? I mean, listen, even liberal lawyers like Alan Dershowitz are concerned by what they're seeing. Judges way outside the realm. I interviewed Chuck Grassley today. We interviewed Senator Blackburn. Everyone's concerned. Does Congress fix it? Does the Supreme Court fix it? Or does it a combination of both?
Well, for example, Senator Grassley is at the tip of the spear on this because he's putting out their legislation that would really cut back on and define what powers these judges have. And I think that bill has a good chance of succeeding. So that's one angle of attack here. The other, of course, is, if we had a decent Supreme Court judge, Chief Justice, I should say, if Roberts, knew what was good for him, he would immediately take this issue up and define a bright line rule of what's good and isn't. I'll tell you one thing that I don't think is a good way to go, and that's impeachment proceedings. And I've seen a lot of back and forth on this. It's pretty clear impeachment requires 2/3 of the senators present to vote for the impeachment. You might get the impeachment through the House, might. You are not going to get 14 Democrats. It's just not going to happen to get them to impeach any of these guys. Yeah. So I think that's one way. That's one avenue I don't think is particularly realistic.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about the removal that Congressman Andy Biggs has proposed, because that would basically be for, as the Constitution defines, bad behavior. Does that dog hunt?
You know what? That's a good one, but I don't know if this rises to that level. And again, you've got to get the votes. So I think it's possible. I haven't seen it done in a long time. I mean, this is rise to a level of moral turpitude. I want to say it does, but other people may see it differently. I like that Biggs is giving it a try because it bypasses, of course, the traditional impeachment route, which I think is not as going to be as easy to go through. So we'll see. It is a possibility. I don't give it high chances of success.
Sam, when you look at the composition of the court, you got 6 conservatives, 2 go back and forth between the liberal and conservative realm on various issues, though they're predominantly with the conservatives. John Roberts, obviously, and Amy Coney Barrett. Is there 5 votes to say to Judge Boasberg, we just settled this in the 1940s, this Alien Enemies Act. Why aren't you following that? And we're vacating your order and start following the Supreme Court precedent. Are there 5 votes for that?
I would hope so. Yeah. And I think the wobbler, Amy Coney Barrett is a big disappointment. I've been following this court for a long time, and that was not one that I expected to turn out the way it did. I would hope that, because there's 2 issues right now. It's this Alien Act that that had already been, it's good law, it's settled law, and the president, when he's acting in accordance with an established law by Congress, is really at the zenith of his executive authority. And the other issue that's going to come to the court are the legality of these injunctions, of these TROs that are being placed by these lower court, district court justices that I think are really extrajudicial, and are a stretch of their authority. Those are the 2 issues that are going to go to the Supreme Court, and it's a wobbler. I don't have a crystal ball.
I know, none of us do. I wish we did. It would make make a lot more better content here on our show. Sam Mirajovsky, legal expert, attorney. Thanks so much for being here. Everybody, go check out his show, the What's Right Show, and we'll be right back on the other side of this break.
Welcome back, America. We wrap up tonight's show with some fun news inside the family. Joining us now is some of the biggest news of the day. He's RAV's newest host, Mike Crispi, and his new show is called Last Call with Mike Crispi. It airs Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Go check it out. Mike, good to have you here. Good to have you in the RAV family. Welcome.
Oh, it's my honor, guys. Thank you so much. Been a warm welcome. We're about to be in the golden age of America and the golden age of Rav. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great time. So tell us a little bit about the show. When people tune in on Saturday, what are they going to get a dose of?
Well, we're going to have a show. It's a weekend feel, nighttime. So fast paced, hard hitting, energetic, uniquely entertaining. A little bit of that, sense of humor. People relaxed on a weekend. And we're going to have a great time. We have great people who are going to join us, have a nice panel of folks, have a lot of fun, leave you entertained. And, what we do on Rav and what we're going to do on our show you the headlines and the stories that you will not see in the mainstream media. We want to make sure that we do that joining Rav. That's the standard, and that's why more people are watching Real America's Voice, and really happy to be a part of it.
That's right.
That's exciting.
Speaking of headlines, I know John won't tout his own, so I will do it for him. John had an amazing article out this morning talking about how Reagan secured peace through strength, and President Trump, with his style, he is trying to achieve prosperity the same way. Do you see those comparisons as well?
Well, I think President Trump is in a league of his own. I think the comparison is very apt. Obviously, we had a great American time period under Ronald Reagan, and now with President Trump, we're going to have a great time period, and I think take it to heights even greater than that. What President Trump is doing around the world, securing peace through strength, through these leverage points that every other president could have used. Obama could have done it. Clinton could have done it. Biden, I guess, could have done it if he could formulate a thought. But Trump is doing it, and it is keeping the world at peace. America has all the leverage. We have all the cards, okay, as Trump said to Zelensky, and it's about time that we start acting like it, whether it's economically or whether it's with our military. We are able to set the pace around the world, and ultimately, that's good for the American people. So I love what President Trump is doing, and that's why they call him the Peace President. I think he needs a Nobel Peace Prize, guys. I think it's already about time.
It would kill the Nobel Academy to do it, but it would sure be great theater to watch. I'll tell you that. I'd pay a ticket to go see that. That'd be worth it. Mike, I want to talk a little bit about when you do the hard things, there are also hard times to get it to the finish line. The market's going to be roiled for a few days. There's a lot of other things going on in the world. What's the key messaging that Donald Trump connects with the American people with to keep everybody calm, get us through this period so they can see the golden age at the back end of these tariffs?
It took a very courageous individual to do what had to be done. President Trump compared it to a surgery. The surgery is over. We have gone through the hardest part. The market is down a little bit, but I'm telling you, when it comes to the United States of America, we were on a path of no return. We had a massive deficit that was only rising, that was only going to lead to a point of no return for this country. Someone had to have the guts to fix it. Trump did it. He's cutting $1 trillion from the budget. That's necessary. He's going to get our country to start paying, or other countries to start paying their fair share. That's going to bring in money to this country. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow the corporate tax rate to go down because more businesses are going to move into this country. That's more jobs. You can lower or eliminate income taxes in many respects. And that is what is going to be the formula of the golden age. So hold on, unless you're withdrawing all your money today. It's just numbers on a screen. Don't worry about it. It is going to boom to levels greater than ever before. Just give it a couple of months. The other countries are already starting to fold and come to the table. They're not going to impose higher tariffs. Canada, Mexico are already backing down. China's going to have to back down because their existence depends on us. And I think in 8 months, people are going to laugh about this, and they're going to be smiling because they're going to love their investment accounts.
Yeah, maybe there will be a little bit of it. What do they call it? A dead cat bounce
Dead cat
after all of
bounce,
this.
that's right,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So before we let you go, a little bit of politics, a little bit of entertainment. So infotainment. That's the programming.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, we like to have fun. I mean, obviously, we're having fun. It's a great time period. Last couple of years, we had Joe Biden and this puppet regime that was making everybody upset. Now we have President Trump. The liberals are having meltdowns. We're having an absolute resurgence on the conservative right in terms of media. So it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun. And we're going to have great guests. I got a great producer, Frankie. He likes to chime in. He's an Italian-American stallion in his own right. And I think people are really going to like it. And their weekends are never going to be so fun. So it's going to be great.
I always love the formatting when producers pipe in there. So, Rob, hey, someday you should open up your own mic and get in here as the voice
She's
of God.
talking to our producer guys.
Yeah,
I know.
absolutely. All right, everybody. The show is called Last Call with Mike Crispy. It airs Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on Real America's Voice. Mike, it was so great to hear from you. Loved hearing about your
congratulations,
show.
buddy.
Yeah,
Welcome.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Appreciate you being here. That's going to do it for us tonight. Grant Stinchfield is going to take you through the next hour. Tune in to justthenews.com.